Guys, welcome back to another video tutorial where we are still on the topic of database management systems, DBMS. And in our last video tutorial, we identified what is a database management system and its purposes. We also identified the various tabs that are used within database. Also, we identify how to create tables and access them in both the design view and the datasheet view. Additionally, we identify how to connect two tables with the use of the relationship feature. So we are now on par in moving on to creating other objects within our database. And again, the database tool that we are using for this video tutorial is Microsoft Access. Now, currently I have my database open and we created a customer database which collects data for different customers as well as the items that they purchase and the associated prices. So let's continue. We will start with the create tab, and as you can recall, in our last tutorial we were at the tables section where we identify the table feature as well as the table design feature. And the table feature was when we were able to open a table in the datasheet view, and the table design allowed us to open the database in a design view or the view from which we are creating our database. Now for this video tutorial, we are moving on to queries, and the option that we are using to create a query is one known as a query design. So queries area, and then we locate query design. Once we locate that, we can go ahead and select, and this provides us with the work area or workspace for which we will use to create our query. Now a query is similar to the filter feature in spreadsheet or the pivot table, where it allows us to create a simplified table for the purpose of specific information that is stipulated based on the instructions that were provided. Now currently the show table pop-up box is here, and the current table that I want for this first query is the customer personal data table only. So I click on that and then select the option that says add, and once it is added to the work area, we can go ahead and close this pop-up box. Now we want to create a query that provides us with customer information such as ID, first and last name, as well as gender. Now the gender, however, we want to display all male customers, so that will be a criteria that we will use in order to design this query. So we will go ahead with creating this very first query. So I will need a customer ID, and there are two ways in which we can add this information to the field area here. We can double click on each of these field names, or we can select the options beside each of the information in the lower half of this. So I'm starting with the lower half, and what I can go ahead and do, the first indication tells us the field that we would want and the drop down arrow. So for the drop down arrow, I would like the customer ID. When that is selected, it gives us the table automatically from where we receive this customer ID, and it is the customer personal data that we got this information from. The second field that we would like to add is the first name, so I can click in the second area, again the drop down arrow, and it is the first name, and automatically tells us which table we got this first name information from. Third thing that we want is the last name, and in this case we double click from the show table box and automatically it was placed within the listing. Now for the last name area, we want to add a sort, so we move to the section that says sort, and then we want to sort by last name. So we locate the field title last name and we ensure that we're in the row matching to the sort area, and then once we select that, we click the drop down arrow that appears, and let's say we want to sort in ascending order, which is from A to Z. So that is outlined. The next thing that we said we wanted was the gender. So again, I'm gonna add that, and the gender is only males. So which of these headings will we use in order to specify that we're collecting male customers? Now we have all field table sort show, those are completed. So the only two remaining areas are criteria or the or section. Now in this case it is referred to as a criteria because gender was a criteria, and the criteria matching to the gender was that of male customers only. So I click again in the area that has the heading gender and the row that matches with the criteria section. So for this, we have to remember what was the exact thing that we entered for the field that had gender. Was it the full name male or female, or was it just the initials F and M? So we can double check on that by reopening the table, and I did open, and when I check in the gender section, it was in fact the letters F and M. So I can close this table and return to my query, and then the criteria would be M, which stands for male. All right. So once that is entered, it becomes appears in double quotation just to indicate that this is a text value. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is to locate the query tools tab, which is in the somewhere in the center top here. So once we click on that, then to our far left, we are locating in the results section the option that says run. And what the run option does is to allow us to see exactly how the query was completed. So I can go ahead and click on that, and as you can see, our query is now showing us a table that contains only male customers. So we can go ahead now and save this query as male query. So we right click, similar to how we saved our table, and select save, and in this we're going to rename it to male query or males query. After we enter the query name, we can go ahead and select OK. And if you are observant, to the left we have the object headings. So tables indicates the different tables that were created, and we have a second heading called queries, which will give us the number of queries that we will be creating throughout this database. So currently we have one query and then two tables in our database. All right, so I will proceed to close in this query. So I right click, select close, and then that automatically closes out our query. I want to create a second query using, again, still just the customer personal data. However, for this time I would want the query to show only the customers that are new. Okay, so again we proceed to the create tab, locate the queries section, and select query design. We add the tables that we're using, and again it's just one table. So once it's highlighted, we select add, and then we can close the show table option. I will just go ahead and double click all of the items that I want. So I want ID, first name, last name, as well as the new customer. And if you can recall, the new customer was a yes or no option, and in this we want to show the customers who are new. So the criteria for new customer would be yes. So I click heading new customer, and then the row that has a criteria to match, and then it is yes. Once completed, again, if you are not seeing this area, you will locate the query tools, and then this will show us the design area, and to our far left we would select under the results area run. So I click on this, and then it provides us with the query. As you can see, we currently have 3 new customers within our database. So again, we can save this query as new customer query. How do we save? Right click on the heading, select save, and then rename. After renaming, we can go ahead and select OK. And again, we can see that a second query was created. Now, the next thing that I want to do is to create a third query, but this time I want my query to have information coming from both of the tables that were created. So I will proceed to closing this, right click, select close. Again, we return to the Create tab, Queries section, and its query design. This time I'm adding both tables to my query area. So customer personal data is highlighted, select add, and then I click on the items table and again add. Once completed, I can go ahead and close my show table pop-up box. Now this time I need from my customer personal data table the first and last name of the customer as well as gender. And then from my items table, I want my items purchased as well as quantity and final price. All right, so in this we can also include a criteria. So let's say for the criteria, I want the customers whose quantity was, all right, let's double check the table to see. So we had quantity ranging from 3 to 24. So we want all items that were less than 24. So we can go ahead and close this. And then in the criteria, the section that says quantity, in the criteria row, we have the less than sign, and we did say it should be less than 24. So that is the information that is there. So again, we select the query tools at the top center and then to the left results area and select run. As you can see, we are now able to see only customers whose quantity was less than 24. All right, we can make some adjustment to this query by arranging the query table based on quantity and then have it in descending order. So in this view, we could click on the heading that says quantity and we want to use the descending order. So in the area that says sort and filter, we select descending and our table is now showing in descending order based on the quantity that was purchased. Again, we can go ahead and save this query. So this query will be called quantity less than 24. So we right click the heading, select save, and then change the name. And then select OK, and our query has been designed. So currently we have 3 queries within our database. So we can go ahead now and close this. And from here, we would also be able to proceed again to the Create tab, but this time we are creating a form. Now, in the last tutorial plus this one, we use a table design and a query design. However, for our purpose, we will be using a form wizard, and what the form wizard does is to provide us with a template of how a form can be completed, and then we would just select the options that are there that is in line with how we would want our form to look. So in the forms areas, we locate form wizard, and once selected, this will open the template that is there. So currently it gives us the location where we can select the fields that we want to include in our form. Now let's say for our form we want to use both tables instead of queries. So we'll select from the first table the ID number, first and last name, as well as all right, date of birth, because we didn't use that as yet. Then we are finished collecting from the first table. So again, we select, and this time our second table. From the second table, we want the items purchased, the unit price, as well as the final price. All right. If it is that we want to remove one of the fields from this, let's say I wanted to remove the unit price, what I can do is to click on it, and then the second to last button option, which is the less than sign, returns this unit price back to the original field area. So once I click that, then it removes it from my current list. So the next thing that I would like to do is to select the next to proceed with my form. Okay, once we select next, we have to the left, how is it that we want to view our data? So let's say we want to first view based on the customer personal data table, so that is already selected, and then to our right it asks us if we would want to have a subform. Now what this does is to permit us to be able to see our form in two instances, as a main form, which would be on the customer data, and then a sub form, which would be, or a minor form, which would be based on the items purchased. So we have our form with sub forms, and then we proceed by selecting next. How is it that we would like to view our sub form? Let's say we're changing it to a tabular form, and then next. What titles do you want for your form? So they're asking us, give us a title for the main form and then a title for the sub form. So the main form, we can call that customer personal data form, and then for the sub form, items table sub form. So that remains. We keep the ticked area as is, and then this would complete our form. So again, the form wizard allows us to quickly fill out a template based on what comes with the application, and then this allows us to quickly manipulate our form, design our form, and then be able to see exactly how our form will look at the end of things. So again, I finish, and then we are now able to see our form. So we have our main section of the form, and then the sub form, which is included, is also showing in the second half of this. To my far left, we are seeing in the objects area the headings tables, queries, and third heading now included is the forms. And as you can see, they save the forms with two names for us: the main form, which is the customer personal, and then the sub form, which is the items table sub form. So this again is a quick way to include our form, and our form allows us to be able to make edits based on the requirements that is given. All right, so we can go ahead and save, or it's already saved, so we close, right click and select close, and then that would have provided our forms. The final thing that we would like to create is our report. So we return to the create tab, forms, pass, and then reports. Similar to our forms, our report has a wizard, and the wizard contains a template that allows us to quickly complete our report without a lot of hiccups. All right, so we select report wizard, and this gives us the outline of the tables that we can use to create our report. Let's say we want to create a report based on a query that we previously created. So for this, I will use a query that has new customers. So we click on the option table/queries area, and in the drop down list, I am locating the new customer query. Once selected, I can go ahead and add the fields to the selected area. So I need all of the information in that. So I can go ahead and select the double right facing arrow, which is greater than, and that adds all of the required fields. The next option is selected. To my left, we are given the opportunity to identify how we can group our form. So in this case, we could use the customer ID, and if you're able to see in the main area, it highlights the customer ID just to say that this is what the report will be grouped based on. Next, we select, and then in this area we are able to sort our table based on the different fields. So I will use the last name to sort, and then there is an option to the bottom that says summary options. This is normally for whether yes or no options, or those that contains numbers or calculated field. Now for new customers, we could insert whether sum, average, minimum, maximum, etc., but it will not display any detailed numbers or any calculations per se, but we could go ahead and select the option just to show you how it will be presented. We will leave this section as is, so we go ahead and select OK, and then we select next. How is it that we want our layout as well as our orientation? In this, I will use the block layout, and then I will leave the orientation as portrait. So I select next. Title for our report, new customers report, and then from there we can go ahead and finish. And this will be able to provide us with a summary of our different customers in our list. Now, as you can see, there is some information that we're not seeing clearly on this list, so we can go ahead and select the option print preview to close, and then to our far left we will change the view to give it a report view. Now in the report view, we can click on, all right, so it's not report view, but layout view. And in the layout view, we can make adjustments by dragging over information that seems to be falling off the page. All right, so we can drag the information. How is it that we're able to drag? Once we click on what it is that we're dragging, it will be highlighted within orange rectangle, and then from there we have an option to, with the double arrow, to drag the information onto the desired area. So currently I am seeing the sum areas still out, so I can click on the area and then I drag once the orange box is present. If I click for the grand total and then drag, then automatically that is also now showing. So this provides us with different ways in which we can complete our reports. And this was one of the easiest ways in order to complete our report. Now, let's say we were expected to get a report on a double line, right? So new customers should be on the first line and then report should move to the second line. All right, how is it that we're able to do this? Again, ensure that the view is on layout view, and once we click on the layout view, we click on the heading, and for the heading we first ensure that the orange box is highlighted, and then we click again to provide a white space. Now I place my cursor before the R in report and I keep pressing my tab, but this keeps on moving across, and I don't want it to be moving across, but I want it to move to the lower part of this. So I'm gonna undo this information, and again I'm gonna ensure that when I click on it, it is the orange box that is showing. So I click somewhere off and then I return. Once I click on that, I get the double arrow from any of these, and the bottom half of that box I drag it down a little just to make space for the word report. Again, I click in the space, select my space bar, and once I keep moving that, it pushes the report to the second line. When I click somewhere off of that, then it indicates that I now have a two-line type. Alright, so that's basically it for the creation of different objects within our database, and in our next tutorial we will identify how is it that we can insert external data from spreadsheet into our current database. Thank you so very much for watching this video tutorial, and we do hope to see you back in the next tutorials to come.